All right, good evening, everybody. This is your Facebook meteorologist, Sean Bagden here, and we are live today to talk to you about the potential track and intensity of Invest 94L. And we're also going to be talking about the mystery system everybody's been talking about that could potentially develop in the Caribbean. Currently, 94L is a code orange with a 40% chance of development as stated by the NHC as it enters into a more favorable environment as we head through the middle of next week. Here is the current satellite image for 94L right now. And as you can see, it is very ragged right now. Very few thunderstorms wrapping around the center. Does appear to have a closed center right now. But certainly nothing worth talking about at this point, given that it's pretty sheared out and is in a pretty hostile environment as we speak right now. Looking over at the latest shear across the Atlantic Basin and Caribbean, we can clearly see it is over here in this area of higher shear, but looking at shear trends, it does appear that the shear is slackening off to the west of our 94L right now, which is going to leave it in an increasingly favorable environment as we head into the Eastern Atlantic midweek. Looks like we do have a window for strengthening as this system moves over towards the Windward Islands here and potentially into the Hispaniola region. We're going to be going over track a little bit later on here. And what's looking a little bit more healthy right now and something that is a little bit more close to home right now, that is going to be this right here, this system that we're watching. This is our mystery system here, just exiting off of Panama right now and is expected to continue to move to the north-northwest over the next couple of days. We're going to be looking at model consensus on this one on the GEFS, which has been showing development of the system. It does not appear to have potential for U.S. impacts at this time, but we're going to go over that once we go into depth on models. As we can see over on that shear map again, you can clearly see that we do have a pretty favorable environment for this thing to take off as it does enter into the area to the northeast of Nicaragua and Honduras here, but it is a very narrow window. So we're going to have a quick look at steering patterns as well as we go through this live stream here and talk about where this may be going. A quick hint, if you are vacationing in Belize and Cancun, you may want to watch this one regardless of if it develops or not. And we're also going to talk about 94L and where that potentially could go. Models do seem a bit confused on that one right now, so we're going to see if we can make it a little bit less confusing for you guys. All right. So I'm going to go over here to the GEFS. I believe I'm sharing that. Let me just make sure. Yes, I am. And we're going to head over to our mystery system first, since that is the first one that is going to be having impacts on land. And then we'll head on over to 94L, which I know you guys are looking for us to cover right here. But first, we're going to have a look at the mystery system that everybody's been talking about. We are going to start it right about now, right at the beginning of the model run here. And as you can see, we go through about a day, 2 days into time here. I believe this is going to be on Wednesday morning, Tuesday evening, actually. We do see model consensus that a low pressure is expected to develop just off of Panama. Would not be surprised with that, as we do see some pretty intense convection going off at our convective maximum right now with that potential area of low pressure, which right now is an open tropical wave, but it is expected to close off and become a tropical system per the last several GEFS ensemble runs. As you can see, we generally have some pretty good consistency that this is going to be developing and deepening off of the Nicaragua-Honduras coastline. This is likely in association with the Central American gyre that occurs here, where you get cyclonically curved flow around this bend in the you get cyclonic curvature within this bend in the land here between Honduras and Nicaragua, and this generally tends to spin up these sorts of systems. In this run, it does have it running into land pretty quickly, but we have been seeing on other runs here. Let me step back to the last one, the run before that. The last couple of runs have been starting to bring it a little bit closer to land, a little bit less time to intensify. But I do see, looking at the current upper flow trends, that we'll likely see this system kind of detach from the gyre a little bit, but then be brought into either the Belize or the Yucatan coastline here. So definitely people in this area, all the way from Cancun down to Belize City right here, definitely need to keep an eye on this one, as if it is able to get into that lower shear environment, which is located off to the north and east of that curve within the land between Honduras and Nicaragua there, it will likely rapidly intensify before it does hit land. Likely not into a major hurricane, but could definitely see a high-end Cat 1 out of this if it is able to get into that low shear environment. Otherwise, if it does follow this sort of pattern here, you're likely looking at gusty conditions, heavy rain, and potentially a low-grade tropical storm once it is able to make landfall there on the border of Nicaragua and Honduras. But I'm not seeing that as a likely scenario right now, as most model runs have detached it from the Central American gyre and move it into either the Yucatan or Belize. This one likely does not have a U.S. threat at this time. So we're going to head on over to 94L, because I know all of you guys want us to be talking about that right now. That's definitely the most important thing we have to have a look at as we speak. So we're actually going to head over to our 200 millibar wind maps here, and this is on the GEFS. This does have a much more accurate, we feel, take on the upper flow pattern than, say, any of the operational models do at this point. We'll get to that and show you why that is the case in a little bit here. So we're going to go back to this time. There we go, 0 hours. And we can see, here's our system we're looking at right here. This is 94L. Again, a very weak system, likely due to the mid-level shear it's experiencing right now. As we did just state, by looking at the shear maps and shear tendencies, it does look like it is going to be entering into an increasingly favorable environment as it approaches the Windward Islands, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, those areas. So that's going to be interesting to watch. How is it going to be able to interact with the upper flow pattern? Steering is really the key here of where it's going to be hitting. Intensification will happen with this system because we are seeing those drops in shear values off to the east, or the west of the system rather. But we are seeing some very interesting patterns, especially on operational model runs this evening. But going forward through time, we are going to be watching this ridging pattern right here over the central US and how that is going to interact with our system. And also, it does look like we do have some troughing patterns that are going to be interacting with it as well. Not specifically this one right here, but there are some very interesting things that we can take from at least operational model runs, like I was saying. Looking at general steering flow across the Central Atlantic right now, does look very east to west right now. So definitely looking at that continued trend of east to west movement, generally right into the Windward Islands here. And we are going to be watching what happens with this area of high pressure or anticyclonic flow aloft right here, because some models do have this weakening and being taken place by a area of low pressure, kind of a cutoff low sort of feature. Actually, I can bring up the GFS here and show you that on the operational. But it does have a cutoff low sort of feature that does develop. Where is that? There we go. It does have this sort of trough that digs south here and kind of cuts off from the flow, goes completely negative, cuts off, and it's very interesting how it kind of pivots around like that. And looking at 500 millibars, it does look even more confusing than this. Looking at 500 millibars, I am highly doubting that this sort of solution would happen at this time, because it does look very unusual for this area. But we'll have to have a look, because it definitely is that time of year you can get deep digging troughs like this. But it is a little bit interesting. So as of right now, we're going to have a look at the GEFS, as it does make a little bit more sense with the upper flow pattern. And it does take all models into account here. It's kind of an average of upper flow conditions. And it generally does have this area of high pressure, this anticyclonic flow aloft over Cuba, the Bahamas, those sorts of areas as we head through time here. At this point, it is likely, our system is likely to be right over here around this time, 138 hours out. And as you can see, it will likely be on the southern end of this anticyclonic flow. This will likely open up a path for it to follow. That'll be somewhere along the southern Hispaniola area, Jamaica. We're also looking at Puerto Rico here, likely grazing along the southern end of those islands and kind of tracking along with that area of anticyclonic flow aloft here. Currently, I am not too enthused with an idea that this has in the U.S. impact at this time, just given what we're seeing on the models and what we've been trending towards. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just looking unfavorable for that outcome at this point in time, just due to the fact that we do have this steering flow aloft that is pushing it more into the Caribbean, and it does look like it's kind of blocking our system from making its way anywhere into the Gulf of Mexico, at least at this point. And if it does follow this pattern, you would likely be seeing a very similar landfall to our mystery system here, likely along the Yucatan or Belize area. Also, Hispaniola in this case, as well as Puerto Rico, Windward Islands, really need to watch out for this one if this were to pan out. We're going to head over to the actual tracks right now for this system that we've been watching. Hold on. Give me one quick second to pull that up. Okay, here we go. Let's enlarge our image. Here's where our system is right now. It looks like we have strong consistency in track up until those islands right there, Puerto Rico area, Windward Islands, and then we have a pretty strong divergence, as you can see. We have these solutions that do take it generally out to sea right here. But again, those I'm seeing is very improbable at this point, as it's a very unusual pattern those systems are following for this time of year. Although we do have to watch the potential of a deep digging trough, I think that is unlikely to dip this far south towards the Bahamas, Cuba area and pick this system up. If that is the case, definitely Bermuda would have to have a look at this system as well. But I do not think that is a probable scenario at this point. I think the most probable scenario we're looking at right here is following the southern quarter of tracks, giving current ensemble guidance and flow patterns aloft. We'll likely be seeing the southern quarter of these models come true. The one problem with this is it puts Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, all in likely what will be the strongest part of the storm, that right front quadrant of the storm. So these areas definitely need to watch out for this. And even if it does end up going north of you guys, it is something that needs to be watched as impacts anywhere around the center of the storm are definitely, of course, going to be impactful, especially given the high mountainous terrain in these areas. Flash flooding will definitely be one of the main issues with this event for this area, no matter the strength of this system, as you guys are all too familiar with. And again, likely going to be following along the southern edge of this ridge of high pressure that is likely going to be developing here over Cuba. And as you can see, these models, these southern end of guidance here, will likely take this system somewhere into the Belize to Yucatan area. Of course, things can change, especially since we are a week out. So we are going to be continuing to monitor 94L and model trends. But at this point here at Stormfront Specialist, we are not too concerned of U.S. impacts at this point. Again, we do need to continue to watch it closely, as if this high does trend a little bit further north, it could open up the Gulf of Mexico potentially. But at this time, again, we're going to harp on this pretty strong here, especially given some comments we've had recently about fear-mongering in U.S. landfalls here. But at this time, definitely looking most likely for impacts to Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Windward Islands, as well as the Yucatan and Belize. Anyone with vacation interests in these areas need to watch the system very closely, as well as really anybody in the Bahamas, Cuba, and I would put South Florida in that as well at this point, just since we do have such a broad divergence in solutions here. And we are a week out, so things can change pretty drastically at this point. So that's about all we have to talk about tonight. Let's see if we have any questions at this time. Doesn't look like it. So we are going to head out. That's just a quick briefing we have on current model trends. And if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them below in the video, and we'll make sure to write back to you as quick as we can. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll be back with future updates on the system as it starts to develop and we start getting model trends shifting as we go forward. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.